Why they picked you. It wasn't random. You have asked yourself this question, maybe hundreds of times, maybe every single day since it ended. Why me? Out of all the people they could have chosen, all the people they walked past, why did they pick you? And somewhere deep down, you have an answer. You think you were too naive, too trusting, too desperate for love. Maybe you believe there was something broken in you that they could smell, like blood in the water, something weak, something damaged. I need you to hear what I am about to say. That answer is wrong, not partially wrong, completely wrong. The research proves it. The clinical data confirms it. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why you were chosen, and it will change how you see everything that happened to you. Welcome to Predator Psychology, where we decode the minds that manipulate and arm the minds that heal. Here is what I'm going to show you today. First, we are going to look at what neuroscience tells us about how predators identify targets. Then, I will walk you through the specific traits they hunt for, and I promise you, these are not what you think. After that, we will uncover the testing process, how they screen you without you ever knowing you're being evaluated. And finally, I will give you the tools to recognize this playbook before it traps you or someone you love again. Let us start with what most people get completely wrong. The common belief goes like this: narcissists and psychopaths target vulnerable people, weak people, people with low self-esteem, people from broken homes who do not know what healthy love looks like. This belief is comforting because it creates distance. If predators only target damaged people, and you are not damaged, then you're safe. But this belief is a lie. Dr. Sandra Brown conducted research on over 600 women who had been in relationships with psychopaths and narcissists. Working with Purdue University, she discovered something that shattered every assumption about who gets targeted. These women were not codependent. They were not relationship addicts. Most had no prior history of abuse whatsoever. Instead, they scored exceptionally high on positive traits, measured at the 97th percentile in many cases. Let me say that again. The victims in her research were not broken. They were exceptional. Similar findings emerged from Dr. Martha Stout at Harvard Medical School. She spent 25 years studying sociopathy and found that conscience itself is what makes people vulnerable to those without one. The more developed your moral sense, the more likely you are to assume others have one too. This is the first thing you need to understand. You were not selected despite your strengths. You were selected because of them. Think about it from their perspective. If you were running a long con, would you target someone with nothing to give? Someone already depleted, already suspicious, already guarded? Or would you target someone with abundance? Someone who gives freely, someone who believes in second chances, someone with a full tank that can be drained slowly over months or years? The answer is obvious when you finally see it. Now let me show you how their brains are literally wired to find you. Neuroscience research explains why narcissists and psychopaths identify victims so effectively. The key lies in a peculiar neurological split. They have intact cognitive empathy combined with deficient affective empathy. This means they can accurately read your emotions, understand your vulnerabilities, and detect your deepest needs, while feeling absolutely nothing that would stop them from exploiting this information. A 2013 study in JAMA Psychiatry used brain imaging to watch what happens inside a psychopath's mind. When psychopaths imagined pain happening to themselves, their empathy-related brain regions activated normally. But when imagining others in pain, those same regions stayed dark. Even more disturbing, psychopaths showed increased activity in the ventral striatum, the brain's pleasure center, when contemplating others' suffering. They do not merely lack empathy, they may actually enjoy your distress. Dr. Robert Hare, who created the gold standard assessment for psychopathy, describes them as intraspecies predators, who view any social interaction as a feeding opportunity. Research found that individuals with higher psychopathy scores had 90% recall of vulnerable characters in studies, compared to 68% for those with low psychopathy scores. Their brains are tuned to notice exploitable people, the way a predator notices wounded prey. It is not always conscious. It is automatic. Here is something even more disturbing. They can literally see vulnerability in how you walk. In a landmark 2013 study, researchers showed maximum security inmates video clips of people walking and asked them to rate who looked like an easy target. Inmates with higher psychopathy scores were significantly more accurate at identifying who had actually been victimized before. They could tell from a few seconds of footage. Ted Bundy himself stated he could identify a victim by the way she walked down the street, the tilt of her head, the manner in which she carried herself. Research now confirms that was not empty boasting. It was an accurate description of predatory perception. So what exactly are they looking for? What traits put a target in the crosshairs? Dr. Sandra Brown identified what she calls super traits. These are not weaknesses. They are strengths operating at exceptional levels. The first is hyperempathy, not just sympathy, but the ability to feel what another person feels, to step into their experience, to hurt when they hurt. This is kryptonite to a predator because it means they can manufacture your sympathy on demand. All they have to do is present themselves as wounded, misunderstood, struggling, right? And your empathy activates automatically. You cannot help it. It is who you are. The second trait is high relationship investment. You show up, you commit. You do not abandon people when things get hard. This is incredibly valuable to a predator because it means you will stay long after you should leave. Your own sense of commitment becomes the chain that binds you. The third trait is deep attachment and bonding capacity. You form genuine connections. You feel things deeply. When you love completely. This makes the trauma bond almost inevitable because your capacity for attachment becomes the very thing that traps you. The fourth trait is low harm avoidance. You do not expect to be hurt. You see others through your own positive lens. This is not naivety, it is goodness. But it means you do not see the danger until you are already inside it. The fifth trait is high cooperation. You want to make things work. You compromise. You meet people halfway. Predators exploit this because you will keep trying to solve problems they are deliberately creating. Dr. Brown's formula for inevitable harm became this: too much empathy plus high bonding plus high sentimentality plus low harm avoidance equals inevitable harm. Notice something about every single one of these traits. They are virtues. They make you a wonderful friend, partner, parent, and human being. The problem is not that you have them. The problem is that someone without a conscience learned how to weaponize them. Now let me show you how they test for these traits before you even know you're being evaluated. Narcissists do not immediately reveal themselves. They conduct what clinicians call boundary testing, a calculated process of small violations designed to gauge your responses before escalating. The first test is the sympathy test. Early in the relationship, they tell you something sad about themselves, a difficult childhood, a cruel ex, a struggle with mental health. They are watching very carefully for your response. Do your eyes soften? Do you lean in? Do you offer comfort, reassurance, the benefit of the doubt? Dr. Martha Stout identifies this pity play as the single most reliable warning sign. Sociopaths consistently deploy elaborate sob stories about mistreatment early in relationships, not because they genuinely seek connection, but to test your empathy response and establish excuses for future bad behavior. If you find yourself often pitying someone who consistently hurts you, the chances are close to 100% that you are dealing with a predator. The second test is the boundary test. They push a small limit early on. Cancel plans at the last minute. Make a comment that is slightly too personal. Show up unannounced. Ask for a favor that is too big for how long you have known each other. They are not interested in the boundary itself. They are interested in what happens when they cross it. If you let it slide, make excuses for them, minimize your discomfort, you just passed their screening. The third test is the reaction test. They do something slightly hurtful and watch your response. Maybe they flirt with someone in front of you. Maybe they go quiet for days. Maybe they make a joke at your expense. What they are measuring is this: do you get angry and leave, or do you get anxious and chase? If your response to mistreatment is to try harder rather than walk away, you have just been selected. The fourth test is the investment test. They create opportunities for you to invest in them early. Ask for help with something. Accept money or favors. Let you plan things and put in effort. The more you invest, the harder it becomes to walk away. They are weaponizing the sunk cost fallacy before you even realize you are in a game. Those who enforce boundaries early get abandoned. Strong boundary setters signal they will not be good supply, so predators move on to easier targets. Then comes love bombing. And this is not what you think it is. Research formally defines love bombing as excessive communication at the beginning of a romantic relationship in order to obtain power and control over another person's life. Studies confirm it is positively correlated with narcissistic tendencies and negatively correlated with self-esteem in the person doing it. Love bombing serves multiple strategic purposes. It creates rapid emotional dependency through what feels like unprecedented connection. Clinical sources compare the neurochemical experience to a drug cocktail as potent as cocaine. You feel you have found your soulmate. But here is what you did not see. While showering you with attention, the narcissist was cataloging your vulnerabilities, fears, past wounds, and deepest needs, information that would later be weaponized during the devaluation phase. The fairy tale beginning makes the eventual abuse harder to recognize and escape. You keep trying to return to who they really were at the start, but that person never existed. They were a construction designed specifically to acquire you. So what do you do with all of this? First, stop blaming yourself for having the qualities that made you a target. You were not stupid. You were not desperate. You were compassionate, loyal, trusting, and hopeful. Those are virtues. The problem is not that you possess them. The problem is that a predator learned to exploit them. Second, learn to recognize the testing process. Early boundary violations are not small things to overlook. They are diagnostic. Someone who respects you proves themselves safe before asking you to trust them. They do not test your limits in the first weeks of knowing you. Third, trust the pace. Genuine connection builds slowly. Manufactured connection is rushed. If someone wants deep intimacy before they have earned it, that is not romance. That is strategy. Fourth, watch for the pity play. When someone leads with their wounds very early, ask yourself why they're telling you this now. Is it appropriate vulnerability, or is it designed to activate your empathy before you have enough information to evaluate them clearly? Fifth, notice how you feel. Anxiety is not attraction. Walking on eggshells is not love. If you feel like you're constantly trying to prove yourself worthy, that is not a relationship problem. That is a targeting problem. You have been selected precisely because you will keep trying. The pattern is the protection. Once you see how they choose, once you understand what they look for and how they test for it, you become invisible to them, not because you stop being empathetic or loyal or hopeful, but because you learn to protect those qualities. You learn to make predators earn access to the best parts of you instead of handing them over at the first sign of intensity. You were not chosen because something was wrong with you. You were chosen because something was right with you. Your capacity for love, your willingness to see the best in people, your depth of connection, these are not flaws to fix. They are gifts to protect. The pattern is the protection. Now you see it. If this shifted how you understand what happened to you, subscribe. There's more to unpack, and you deserve to understand all of it.